Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. So glad to see you. I have what should be a very short review, and it is one candle from Bath & Body Works. And the candle in question is this one, Blue Verbena and Lime. I don't know if that's really focusing or not. Weirdly seems to do better from afar. Yeah, at any rate, really beautiful. I've made absolutely no secret of the fact that I adore the neutrals aesthetic and packaging. It's my kind of aesthetic for sure. I just love it. It's so classy, it's clean, it's just simple, it works, it's classy and cool. Yeah. All right, so Blue Verbena and Lime was one of the ones that came out near the beginning of the year. There were several neutrals candles that came out that were relatively new. The Wild Rose and Suede was in that same little drop. And man, Bath and Body Works has been churning the botanicals and the herbals out from the beginning of the year. So if you are a botanical and herbal and floral kind of person, you have so much to be happy about. I actually do feel a little bad for like the gourmand folks, because I don't really feel as though there have been very many gourmands since the beginning of the year. Like a couple, but not a whole lot. And given that gourmand is really probably one of Bath & Body Works' strongest, if not the strongest forte of what it is that they do, it is a little surprising that we've gone a good 3 months without a significant number of gourmands, even given the season. And it hasn't bothered me so much because I don't do gourmand. And so in that sense, like, I haven't missed it. But objectively, I actually would love to see some gourmands. Not for myself, but for all of you out there. And for the fact that Bath & Body Works does those really well. And frankly, no matter what the genre is and no matter how much you love it, you can get fatigue. You know, if it's just too many gourmands, if it's too many florals, if it's too many perfume candles, it can just get to be a lot. And there are a lot of even major fragrance families that should frankly be utilized on a frequent basis to give a great amount of range. Certain candle companies obviously do certain families really, really well, and they want to emphasize those. But I would say for the most part, it's always good to have a healthy range of a lot of different families of fragrances. And as much as I love the botanicals and the herbs, and really many of their florals have been fairly decent, even I'm getting a little fatigued. And I can't imagine if you're something else, and especially if you're a gourmand lover, I'm kind of surprised, frankly, that we haven't gotten more complaints about that. I don't know. If you're a gourmand person, do you feel a certain kind of way, or do you feel as though it's pretty much the same? I don't know. In terms of the botanicals and the florals that have been on offer and the herbals, I've been really grateful for many of the herbals too. I wonder if like herbal is becoming a thing. Like people's tastes are changing, and obviously Bath and Body Works has their finger on that, and they definitely are trying to like adjust to the consumer demographic. And that has probably been responsible for a lot of the changes that we've seen, just little ones, even just marginal ones, changes that we've seen in the collection. We're seeing them do things that, you know, historically they haven't done. And it could be because of the changing tastes of the consumer demographic. Yeah, so it's been a lot of like even herbal candles in this first 3 months. I don't know that there have been a huge amount of standouts. That's the thing. A lot of them have been good, and some have even been quite good. And I haven't gotten like I haven't burned to like all of the ones that I've got. So right now I'm burning like the William Morris candles. So greenhouse fern, lavender and vetiver, and bergamot and birch. I'm burning those three. And what else do I have left? Oh, I haven't done Anna's Garden yet. So I do need to do Anna's Garden. Really grateful for You, Me, and the Sea, which is a nice ocean aquatic. And I do think the aquatics have been not represented quite as well, probably even just historically in Bath & Body Works catalog. But I would say even now, less aquatics than I think maybe they should have. Close parentheses on that. So I've got a few left still to go. But I mean, the good news, the glass half full, is that most of the botanical, herbal, floral candles that they put out in the last 3 months have at least been good. There really haven't been too many like disastrous misses, which is fantastic. But I would have liked to see a few of them that were really like best new candle nominees, and I just don't know that any of them are, which is also contributing to the sense of fatigue a little bit. There have been a lot of candles in the category of Palo Santo and Sage. And I adore Palo Santo and Sage, but even I'm starting to get a little bit tired of some, what I think is redundancy. I'm looking at you, Cardamom and Vetiver. So yeah, I am really pleased, and this is one of them, the Blue Verbena and Lime. I am really pleased about the efforts to put forward some really authentic and interesting herbals and botanicals, not just florals. Florals has been in their wheelhouse for a while. I'm impressed with that, but I'm wondering if we're going to need to switch it up here relatively soon. After I said this was going to be a short review, then I just like went into like a thing, right? Okay, we didn't need that. The preamble is that I think this fragrance has a great deal of potential, and I'm so happy it fits well within the Neutrals collection vibe and was a great one for this season, and I think has some very unique and special elements. But unfortunately, I liked it less burned than on cold. And the performance and the way that the fragrance came across for me unfortunately dropped this candle from being a potential standout to just kind of being another one of those decent candles that we've had a dime a dozen here in the last 3 months. Okay, so that's, I guess, the background as to why it is that I'm saying this is yet another. I think it's very similar. If you watched my review of Cardamom and Vetiver, very similar to that one. So the notes on this are sugared lime, zesty verbena, and garden thyme. And those already just kind of sound amazing. I'm a little cautious sometimes about citrus, all citrus, frankly, although I do love citrus to consume. I'm wary of it as a fragrance note, especially from candle companies that are hitting more of the mid-range and low range in terms of price point. I do think that citrus can go all manner of really bad and cheap directions. And so it worries me a little bit when I see a candle company that's not like a luxury candle hitting a lot of citrus notes, specifically when they're sugared or when they're sparkling or whatever else. And so the sugared lime did worry me a bit. And even zesty verbena. So verbena is another very kind of, it's very similar to lemongrass in that it's, again, kind of a high citrus note with a grassy herbal note that can come across a little bit medicinal as well. So you've got, with some of, like with lemongrass, with verbena, you have on one side the potential to go bad citrus, i.e. like cleaner product, etc. And then you've got like the grassy herbal direction of lemongrass and verbena that can go aromatherapy, but also medicinal very fast. So you've got two of those combined. And then you have garden thyme, which I love because I do love the true blue chip herbals. But thyme is, like sage, a very assertive kind of fragrance note. and one that is becoming more common, especially in the more avant-garde candles that are coming forward, but can still be kind of a tricky note to get right. And it really matters what it is that you marry that sage or that thyme with. And in this case, you're marrying it with two elements that are potentially problematic. Yeah? So the upshot of that is that on paper, it looks like it might be amazing, but it also looks like it might be a hot mess. And I'm so happy to say that upon smelling it, I thought it was great. I really did. There is, even on cold sniff, a fairly, I don't know that I would go full personal fragrance direction, but there's definitely a perfumey aspect to it. Yeah, kind of like a musk amber back behind it. It's not a fully fledged body care note, though, kind of in the way of like, this could be a shower gel. Don't get me wrong, I suppose it could be a shower gel, but there are just too many really green botanical elements and herbal ones that kind of cut against that. Like, I would want my whole body to smell like this. But like I said, the note of amber and musk back behind it definitely gives it a refined, possibly perfume conceptual kind of vibe. And in that sense, very similar to like Wild Rose and Suede, which also kind of had that perfumey, basically a perfume conceptual. I think this is another like perfume conceptual with very strong green elements. The green elements here come forward like a green vine. And it might not necessarily be a true green vine because you do have an herbal bite to it. The thyme is soft, but it's there. And then you have something kind of grassy, and I assume that's the verbena. So it's like a grassy green vine with the thyme, with a little bit of like vague herbalness from the verbena as well. And then you do have these beautiful kind of sharp pops of lime citrus. And it does smell like a lime citrus as opposed to a lemon citrus. And there's something about that green lime that just goes so well with the lemon verbena and with the thyme. And you just couldn't imagine it with lemon. I don't know why. You just couldn't. I mean, it really fits well as a nice botanical concept. All of those three elements just go together so well. And the lime here is not like a citrus oil that you would, like bergamot, that you would use in conjunction with an amber to go in a full perfume direction. And so while there's the amber and while there is that perfume like musk, it's not playing in conjunction with the lime in such a way as to go like really cliche and standard perfume or cologne. The lime that's there, that sugared lime, is a fresh lime, like a botanical lime, that is in fact in the same category as the thyme and as the verbena. So there's the green botanical elements, and then there's the amber and the musk rounding it out and making it, like I said, a perfume conceptual with very strong botanical overtones. So on cold, I think it's really, really nice. Could I imagine and have I smelled similar candles with greater complexity? Yes, especially in the luxury world. But for Bath & Body Works, this is quite good, and it's quite authentic, and it's quite premium smelling. The problem is, oh, by the way, I did burn this all the way down to the wick clips. I can't say that it didn't burn low at a lot of those moments. It did not go full puny wicks on me, so that's good. And it was, I would say, moderate in terms of sooting. It was more discolored than it was actual sooting. And the discoloration, I've seen worse. So it wasn't great, but it wasn't like terrible either. And the wicks didn't burn quite as high as I wanted them to, especially in the second half of the candle. But like I said, they did not go full puny wicks. They continued, they kept chugging along, you know, like the little engine that could, and got down all the way and extinguished itself out in that final burn. So relatively happy with that. What I didn't like about the burn was a couple things. Number one, the strength in the throw is not where I wanted it to be. I think it was probably coming in at about a 4. And I kept it in the guest bathroom for most of its existence. It just didn't do well anywhere else. It didn't even do particularly well back in the master bedroom. So it was a candle lab guest bathroom kind of candles that tells you automatically what we're working with. And for the most part, I had to kind of keep the door shut. But as with Wild Rose and Suede, which it burned very close to in terms of the way that the profile, the fragrance profile was and the way it came across, when it had been shut up into that guest bathroom, you got it up to a good 6.5, 7 in that small space. And then when you were in that small space with it, it was completely overwhelming because there is a heaviness and a stodginess to the fragrance once it's burning high and filling a space. So like Wild Rose and Suede, it doesn't really have much of a presence in a moderate space. It's going to be far too light for you. But then if you get it into a space where you are actually getting like a fairly good strength and throw, and by fairly good, I'm not talking 8, I'm not talking 9, I'm talking 6.5. Even at a 6.5, this fragrance was overwhelming. The brighter, greener botanical elements, especially the lime, but also really the thyme as well, the brightness of them and the authenticity of them really went away when it was burned. And the whole fragrance just kind of like sunk like this, like almost physically and viscerally, and then pooled and kind of drowned in like the amber and musk. And so the whole thing was just kind of like vaguely powdery and just, yeah, it was just kind of like quicksand of some sort of really heavy cologne. And frankly, that's what happened with Wild Rose and Suede as well. There was just a real, almost oppressive heaviness about the fragrance once it was burned, at least burned to a degree that you could smell it fairly well. Otherwise, you could burn it, like when I left the door of the bathroom wide open, then like into the foyer, it would come out. And it was like vaguely pleasant in the foyer because it wasn't up in the 6 range. It was like in the 4.5 range, basically. So it was kind of pleasant. But do you want a candle that's 4.5? And this is kind of like vaguely giving you some sort of perfume conceptual with vague, like herbal overtones to it. It just wasn't special, you know? Smelling it on cold, I really did think it had potential to be special and to be like a standout, but upon burning it, it really wasn't. And like I said, performed very similarly in that respect to Wild Rose and Suede. And both of them seem in the same genre, frankly, as Salted Amber and Vetiver from last year, which was another one of these. It was in a very light, like sea green blue. And I made that a best new candle last year. I think it was a best new candle. And I meant to actually bring it because I have one back in my storage area. I have another, in fact, I might have 2 Salted Amber and Vetivers. That was a fantastic perfume conceptual that had aquatic and like beachy overtones to it. With a very strong, like creamy sandalwood amber component on the bottom. All 3 of these candles, though, that Salted Amber and Vetiver, this blue Verbena and Lime, and the Wild Rose and Suede, are all very similar in that I believe if you had to categorize them, you would call them perfume conceptuals, and frankly, fairly premium smelling perfume conceptuals with various different kinds of natural overtones that then inclined it in various other kinds of ways. So with the salted amber and vetiver, you essentially had a perfume conceptual with aquatic overtones and some bergamot in it. So some citrus and aquatic in that salted amber and vetiver. Then in the wild rose and suede, you had a perfume conceptual that was leaning a little bit on the linen side, linen cotton side, yeah? With a little bit of like vague floral. And then you've got blue, verbena, and lime that is a perfume conceptual that's leaning green and botanical with, again, some kind of citrus elements. So all three candles are different. Don't get it twisted. They don't smell alike in terms of all of their notes, but the profile of these three fragrances are very, very similar. And I applauded Salted and Amber and Vetiver, which, by the way, is the best of the three. It's executed the best, and it definitely performed the best. Sorry for that motorcycle. I applauded Salted and Amber and Vetiver because I thought that it was, and it may be the first in this category that they did, although there may have been some before this, I don't know. It was the first one I noticed, and I think these two are very much in the same category. I applauded it because I thought that it was in some ways within the wheelhouse of Bath & Body Works, and in other ways not. That I thought it was an example of something where they were kind of pushing a little bit outside of their comfort zone in a direction that I thought was fantastic. So being a perfume, a premium perfume conceptual, is still within the main of like personal fragrance. And so in that sense, not outside of Bath & Body Works' wheelhouse. Now, the personal fragrance for Bath & Body Works, the vibe tends to be a little bit less premium. It's more on the level of like everyday shower gels and soaps, you know, those kinds of things. So this was not like a body splash or a body mist kind of fragrance. This was like a premium fragrance conceptual that was kind of like heading in the direction more of like Nest or Jo Malone or something like this. And I think that that's fantastic. Obviously, Bath & Body Works can't do that across the board, and they still want to stay within that like very strong consumer demographic that's a little bit of a less premium perfume kind of vibe. But I love the fact that they're pressing in this direction and giving us these kinds of offerings. And I do think that this one and the Wild Rose and Suede follow Salted Amber and Vetiver in that genre. Unfortunately, they're just not executed quite as well, and I can't recommend them as strongly. I think they're weaker contributions, but I'm really excited to see Bath & Body Works kind of commit to this and keep experimenting, keep contributing to it. I love that. And so the positive here is that I love the idea. It wasn't executed completely well, but I think it's fantastic. It's well within kind of a whole vibe and a whole category that they're exploring in depth. And there are going to be some hits and there's going to be some misses. Certainly Salted Amber and Vetiver was a hit. I don't think this or Wild Rose are hits necessarily, but I'm really excited to see them just really committing to this. And I'm excited to see the other candles that they're going to come up with in the future that are very similar to this one. So I hope that that was helpful. I can't really recommend it, but I do think that if you like botanicals and you like herbs, that it might be one that you want to check out. Just adjust your expectations about what happens to it once it's burned. Because unfortunately, I think it's far more brilliant smelled on cold. When it gets burned, a lot of that brilliance kind of washes away. Okay, that's Blue Verbena and Lime. I'll link it down below. After saying this was going to be a very short video. Yikes! I'm sorry. I hope that I was able to like say some things though that were, it's amazing. Like you go into it and you don't know how many times, especially with a one candle, I'm like, oh my gosh, should I even get my camera out for this? This is absurd. It's gonna be like 2 minutes and done. And then somehow once I get in the front of the camera, I'm like, let me talk about this and this and this and this. And like, gosh, I can talk a blue streak. It's kind of crazy. Ugh. Sometimes, like, sometimes I watch myself, like, when I'm having a particularly exhausting day, and I'm, like, exhausted by myself. I'm watching this video, and I'm like, she is going on, and, like, it's all on point, but, like, make her stop. I'm sorry if you feel that way sometimes. 25 minutes on one Bath & Body Works candle that actually wasn't even that great. But God bless, and I'll catch you in the next one.